Welcome back, guys. You're watching the Hillbilly Homestead, the worst homestead on YouTube. And I'm a little bit out of my element today because we are surrounded by animals. So Elise is with NE Critters Farm, and she's gonna be teaching us a little bit about goats today. Why are you here?
I run a goat grazing operation. We are NE Critters Grazers or NE Critters Farm, and we run sheep and goat day-to-day operations to clean up brush and unwanted vegetation for our customers. Right now we have around 40 head here to clean up a couple of acres, and they're doing a pretty good job. They just got put on this section about an hour ago, and they're already knocking down a lot of the grass. The sheep are pretty happy with that, and the goats are excited too. They're getting up into the tree lines, as you can kind of see, and starting to eat some of the cedar and some of the brush underneath the trees.
And you are predominantly, you have goats and then you have some sheep here, right? There's Dorothy right here. And so why do you have different ones? If someone's gonna be entertaining the idea of getting into this, what's our considerations for that?
The reason I have goats is because they eat most of the brush. They're pretty hardy when it comes to being able to clear all the brush off. These sheep are more for pasture and grass areas, and they do a really good job of taking care of the smaller or the bigger leaf trees, smaller grassy areas, where the goats take care of the trees. They'll try and reach up about as high as they can get. Sometimes they can reach 5-6 feet. Depending on the goat, little short ones can only get about 3 feet, so it kind of just depends.
And how long have you been doing this?
So I have been doing the goat grazing for 2 years now. This is my second year. It's been an interesting ride.
Okay, interesting how?
I've got to meet a lot of great people. I've got to see a lot of different places. It's wonderful to see what they can do. It still is surprising to me how amazing how fast and how good they are at clearing the land in just even a few short hours, a few short days, depending on how big the section is. And it's always amazing to me to see the aftermath of what they can accomplish in just a few short hours, where it would take us days and a lot of time to clear by hand.
And so if you were a brand new goat grazer, or
yeah.
if you wanted to be a goat mower, what advice would you give someone, or would you have them steer clear of it entirely? What did you wish you know before you started?
Definitely a lot harder work than I originally could have guessed. A lot of times the places are very rocky, because if you talk to people, they're like, oh, I want to hire equipment, but the goats can go where a lot of times the equipment can't. So it's nice to get the goats in there, but it is hard on your arms and it is hard labor, but it's also very rewarding to see the end result. Kind of like building a house. It's amazing to see once it's done, and it's a lot of hard work in the beginning.
There's a lot of new viewers and they're saying, you know what, I work at W2 in town, I'm wanting to get off property, I'm wanting to, buy my own property and get into goats. Is there any advice you'd have for someone who's brand new, they don't know anything? Where would you have them start? What would you wish you knew before you got into everything?
Find a mentor. That is your key, is finding a mentor and finding somebody who's been in it for a few years that's happy to help you get started and get into it, because I've been raising goats for almost 20 years and I still learn something new about every day. So it is nice to be able to have a close-knit group to figure out exactly what the goats are about, and not everybody knows everything, and they're gonna challenge that every day.
So just a ballpark, we're roughing things in. So what was it all in for you to get started in the goat mowing operation?
The cost to get started for me was about $12,000. I had to buy the equipment. I bought a different herd because we raise show herd on top of the goat grazing business. We do a milk and meat goat operation, and then my kids and I show the goats as well. Getting the equipment, getting the buckets, the trailers, the different things I needed to get started cost a little bit more. I also am affiliated with Goats on the Go. They help me with my marketing, kind of learning how the basics are. We have a conference each year and get to meet other affiliates, and there's an affiliate network. There's probably Goats on the Go people all around the area near you.
And what was your all-in initial cost for equipment? So you had nothing and you bought a herd and you got equipment. What was the equipment you used? Why did you need that kind of thing?
I think the fence runs about around $200 a roll. I have 10 rolls of it here to run an acre plus a little bit. You can do a little alleyway with the rest of the fence. Feed troughs run about 50 bucks, depends on where you're at. You have to have water buckets to be able to water, hoses, a trailer, stock trailer to be able to load them up and load them out, a vehicle to be able to haul everything. So the initial and insurance to be able to make sure that the goats are covered in case something happens. And
What's the insurance look like?
the insurance is $1 million commercial liability policy.
Okay.
And it basically just, if the goats get out and a car hits them or the
And it
goats
does
do
something.
some damage.
So $1 million commercial liability, you're talking $200 a month, give or take?
It's $800 a year basically.
$800 a year. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's even cheaper. So I mean, commercial liability policies are very inexpensive.
Right.
Not too bad there.
Nope.
So I think what you've said so far, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you needed a pickup truck,
Right.
buckets, as much fencing as you could handle reasonably,
Right.
some water considerations, and well, the fencing's not connected to anything, so how much did like the electric part cost?
Oh, so the box.
Is it around here?
Yeah, it's around the other side.
You have a waterproof container on wheels,
Yes.
12-volt battery.
Yep.
Is that marine grade deep cycle?
Marine. Yep.
Then you just have a fence energizer that's 12 volt,
Yep.
and then charge controller that
That
connects
runs
to
the
your
solar.
solar panel.
Yep. And charges from the battery solar panel.
And so
And you
this
can
whole
hook
setup
that.
right here, even if you didn't want to get into this for money, what would this cost if you're just like, I want goats, I want to rotationally graze them?
$400 or $500 if I had to guess. I don't know.
And it's a one-time upfront fee, and you have all the equipment you need.
Yep.
And you're going to use this whether you're running goats on other people's property or not, right?
Correct. Yep. I use it at home, even when I am fencing off my own pastures or rotationally grazing my own pastures. I use my box to keep up with, and I actually have two in case one of the batteries goes dead. I can swap them out.
Two is one, and one is none. And one of the things, we had a conversation last time you were here, because you have two herds, or two or three herds, right?
3 herds, yeah.
You have 3 herds, and some you never rotate and graze, and other you constantly are rotating and grazing. And you were talking about the worming situation or the pest and disease cycle. The ones that you find rotational grazing, are they more or less susceptible to pests and disease?
Kind of depends on the time of year. So if it's really wet, you'll have to really watch with the parasites and having the issues with all of that. Now, if it's really dry, there's not so many issues with parasites. Coccidia is also another thing. If there's too many in one spot, or if it's a really wet ground, you have to worry about coccidiosis. And so those are just some of the things that with goats is part of the challenge of raising them.
Part of just having goats.
Yep.
And so you're doing the goat mowing, right? The online theory, or everyone's excited, what they claim or think has happened is, let someone else pay you to feed your animals for you, right? So you're not paying for feed, but you're doing that. But that's not really the reality to some extent. So what are some things that people should take in consideration prior to jumping in, doing something like this if they want?
That if you're going to do it, you really need to make sure that you have good shoes and you're capable of working in the extreme heat. As like today, it was 100 plus degrees with humidity, and no matter what, the goats had to be moved. Sometimes I haven't had this problem, but other affiliates have got calls in the middle of the night that goats are out in the middle of the street. And so you have to be willing to be able to run up and go get your goats real quick and figure out what happened and why the fencing was an issue in the first place, and then try and keep going from there. So I was very fortunate with one of the affiliates from Goats on the Go to teach me how to make this box, and it's been really good because it stays a lot hotter than most of your general chargers you can buy on the market. And so mine's a little bit hotter, so I've not had the issues with the goats getting out. But just like you had noticed, sometimes other animals can hit it and knock it down and drag off with it a little bit. So on the first day that they were here grazing, he actually ended up having to fix the fence.
So you have 3 operations that you're running.
3 herds.
And what do you make the most money from, and would you do this again if you had the choice?
So the goat grazing probably makes me the most money, I guess, if you want to account for quick succession of money, I guess. if you want to call it that. The milk goats make me money when they're bred and selling babies off, and I sell the milk and the cheese and ice cream and things like that. So they all make me a little bit of money. Not everything makes me a lot of money.
So each piece, and one of the things that we hear reoccurring if you listen to like Mark Shepard and everything is, when you're a homesteader or you're running a farm operation, not one thing can really pay for the whole thing.
Right.
It's a bunch of little things, $100 here, $700 there, and then total together you're looking at, cool, these 5 things that I do, they end up making enough for me to live. Have you found it to be pretty comfortable, or are you guys always stretching now?
What I make with the goats and the farm goes back into the farm. My husband works independently on another craft, and so he does the household payments and the day-to-day stuff, and the goats and pay for the other goats, and the dogs also help pay for the rest of the farm because you also raise dogs.
You raise dogs and
Yep.
sell dogs off.
Yep.
And so the kid goats, or rather the goats for milk, you're making a little bit of income, but your bulk of your income for the year, the name of the game for you, that you found your niche, is you breed good goats and you sell those in the spring. And so your holding costs are through the rest of the year, and then you hope to recoup a bunch of that towards the beginning.
Right, and then you also have to have good enough animals that can thrive in different conditions. So like my milk goats that are registered and pampered, I would never put out here on job sites because they're just not conditioned to take the stress of the move and the stress of having to forage as much as the goats that I have a bunch of Kiko crosses here that are conditioned and designed to do this.
Because you and your kids show the goats, and those are the pampered ones. And those are the ones that you end up breeding and selling.
Yes, so we run a pretty good-sized Nubian herd, which is the dairy goats, and we show and do pretty well at the shows when we show. So, and that kind of, we enjoy it. We enjoy the goat people and meeting people and getting to discuss goats because that's kind of our passion and our thing.
From a money perspective, it's about $5,000 for 30 head of goats, roughly, give or take. Who knows for you, depending on what part of the country you're in, how quickly will goats clear what kind of land in, let's say, an acre?
So,
and how much can you charge for that?
Usually my prices range $800 to $1,200 per acre, depending on how dense it is, the topography.
So if it was more difficult for you to do the work, then you charge higher amounts.
Correct, and depending on how far it is, because I'm based on north side of Springfield, closer to Stratford, Fairgrove area, and so the further I have to go, the higher the price goes. And depending on how many acres, you know, if it's over 10 acres, the price actually lowers because it's a lot to pay for, and try to keep it reasonable for people.
So you drop the price, and it's probably less work because you're not moving it around as much.
Right. You can fence off a bigger spot, and the more moves you do, the more it costs. It kind of just depends on how that works. And
so 30 head should clear an acre every week?
So usually I tell people an acre in 7 to 10 days, but with the 40 plus head that I have here, they've been clearing an acre in about 3 days. So it kind of just varies depending on how dense it is.
So it's an acre in 3 days. On the low end, you're looking at $800. Of course, there's gas and fuel, everything.
Yep.
And then $1,200 on the high end if it's a huge pain. So with that, one of the things you were saying earlier, what is the most difficult part you found about whether it be the goat grazing or business that you've run into that you didn't expect?
You know, goats are a different creature. They're not for everybody. Gotta have a lot of patience with them. As far as issues, most of the time, parasites are number one. You've got hoof trimming that you have to keep up with, and just day-to-day keeping an eye on them. Predators are sometimes big issues for people. Being on job sites, I've had domestic dog issues, not coyote problems, not mountain lion problems, but domestic dogs have been an issue with some of the goat.
And from a business standpoint, how many jobs did you get in year 1 versus year 2?
So the first year I had 3 jobs. It was trying to get my name out there and just getting started and not really knowing exactly what I was doing. And I was very grateful for those 3 that got me started, and they've been referring people to me, which is nice. And then this year I've got 4 or 5 jobs lined up to hopefully get me through until the end of November, and which is about the end of the grazing season, and we should be good for that.
Any advice for a brand new person that they're excited, they want to get into it, they don't know where to start?
Do a lot of research, find out what breed best matches you. I run several different types of goats, and some have worked out and some have not. And just like I said, depending on what your goal is with your animals, you want to choose the goat that would best, or the breed that would best suit you for that operation. So for me, I really love the Nubian dairy goats for the milk, but my son loved Alpines, and so he raised his own herd of Alpines. For me, they were just too stubborn to deal with. The Kikos do a lot better on the grazing sites than my boars do. I raise registered boars for meat, and they're out on the jobs right now, so we can get a little quicker, go through each job a little quicker and get it done a little faster. And I've got some La Mancha crosses that have been crossed with Kiko and mini La Manchas, and they're doing really good on the job sites. They were bred for more of a grass-based operation, and so they've been really good on the properties as well. And so it kind of just depends. I've got some pygmy goats in there, and they do okay eating, but they don't eat as much as some of the bigger goats. You gotta have good fencing because they're small and can get out of different places. So you have to consider how hard you want to work and what you want to do, your goals are, in order to figure out what breed you want to raise.
Well, guys, thank you, Elise, for coming out. And guys, her and their farm's description is below in the comments. Go check them out, give them a like on social media. If you're in the Springfield area and they're still running goats, their information will be below. If not, and you can buy, where can people buy stuff and find out more about you?
All right, we have a website, www.in as in north, e as in elephant, critters.com, or we have Facebook pages, in.e.critters or in.e.critters Grazers, and that's for the grazing herd.
Before we sign off, anything else you want to tell strangers on the internet who are interested in goats?
Just enjoy your time with your goats. Have fun with them. They're a lot of fun to watch, and it really is amazing what they can do.
Guys, if you like that kind of stuff, you want to see more things around goats or animals, or me interview other awesome entrepreneurs and farmers trying to make it out there, be sure to like and subscribe. Share this with someone that you think would get value out of it. In this day and age, some coder in California can just behind a keyboard, boom! I'm gone forever, Elise is gone forever. You can bypass all of that by sharing us directly with somebody. We've got merch now, check it out down below. Comment if you want to see me check something out, and I'll do my best to find somebody who does that thing, and I can be the idiot who goes and tries something that I probably shouldn't be trying. So, like, subscribe, we'll see you next time. Ba-da-ba-ba-bum.